Well, we've officially reached the midpoint of the 2013 NFL season. We've seen plenty of good stuff, and plenty more is on the way. Let's talk about a few of these Week 9 games now. The lines have been released on BETDAQ, and a few of them caught my eye. I'd like to start with the Thursday night game, the Cincinnati Bengals going on the road to face the Miami Dolphins. Cincinnati, a 1-point favorite on BETDAQ, 42.5 the total here. This line might look a little fishy to some people. Cincinnati only a 1-point favorite despite winning 4 games in a row. The Dolphins, of course, have lost 4 straight games. Predictably, the public all over the Cincinnati Bengals in this game. The line actually has been on the move out in Las Vegas. This game opened at pick. It is now Cincinnati minus 2.5 most places in Vegas. As we said, the Bengals a 1-point favorite on BETDAQ. And I'm taking a long, hard look at the Miami side here. First off, you always have to be scared by games where the public is heavily on one side. We saw on Monday night yet another example. It was tough to make a case for the St. Louis Rams with Kellen Clemens at quarterback against the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, I know the game was in St. Louis and the Seahawks do play worse on the road, but the Seahawks were 7-1 against the spread in their last 8 road games going into that game. Yet Seahawks almost lost the game. It came down to the final play, didn't come close to covering. So it works out so often that way when we see lines that look maybe too good to be true, and we see so many people on one side of it that side doesn't end up working out. After all, bookmakers are not in the habit of just giving away money. And so again, I am taking a look at the Miami side here. You know, the Dolphins have been competitive. They've lost 4 straight games, but you look at their last 3 losses, 2 of them, they lost a game by 2 points, a game by 3 points, and then last week against New England, they dominated the first half of that game. We went to the locker room with a 17-3 lead. Now New England then came back and dominated the second half, won 27-17. But it's not like the Dolphins are a bad team. It's not like they've gone in the tank or anything like that. And they're now at 3-4. If they could get a win here, everything is still very much alive in terms of the playoffs. If they lose here to go to 3-5, it's obviously not dead yet, but this is a crucial game for the Miami Dolphins, maybe a circle the wagon type moment. And the Cincinnati Bengals, we talk about buy low, sell high. After a 49-9 win over the New York Jets, this could be a good sell high time for the Bengals. It's not like the Bengals have been world beaters all year. Just 3 weeks ago, remember, they struggled to that 27-24 road win over the Buffalo Bills with Thad Lewis as quarterback for Buffalo. A game that Cincinnati was a 7-point favorite in. The public was all over the Bengals there. Again, Buffalo found a way to cover, almost won the game. The game went to overtime. So, we don't want to take too much from one week, from any one week in the NFL. And no doubt the Bengals laid it on the New York Jets last week. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do the same thing on the road in Miami on a Thursday night. And I do have a Dolphins lean in this game. We'll see. A couple days yet to decide. We'll be putting up a more comprehensive preview on that game here, I guess, tomorrow. But again, I do have an early Dolphins lean there. Let's talk about another game that people might say the line looks a little fishy. And I'm trying to convince myself this line is not fishy because I want to rush and place a bet on the New Orleans Saints as only a 5.5-point favorite on the road against the New York Jets. That line is 5.5 on BETDAQ, 45.5 the total. We just mentioned the Jets losing 49-9 last week against the Cincinnati Bengals. Jets have been very up and down this season. They've surprised on occasion, a couple of recent occasions, when they've been underdogs, winning games outright against the New England Patriots and the Atlanta Falcons in the last month as underdogs. And so I guess maybe that's an argument for the New York Jets here, but if you've got another argument for the Jets plus 5.5 against the New Orleans Saints, I'd like to hear it, please, because I try to see both sides of all these games, and it always makes me feel better about the side I like when I can see the obvious angle, the obvious other angle, the obvious angle for the other side. I am having trouble finding a Jets angle here. The New Orleans Saints, look, we know all about their offense. Once again, top 5 in the league in yards per game, points per game, pass yards per game. And the Jets just gave up 325 passing yards and 5 passing touchdowns to Andy Dalton and the Cincinnati Bengals. No one would ever confuse Andy Dalton with Drew Brees or the Cincinnati offense with the New Orleans offense. The Saints 6-1 on the season. You might look at this game and say, well, the Jets have the better defense. It's going to be outdoors, etc. Well, New Orleans playing pretty good defense themselves. As a matter of fact, the Saints allowing 9 fewer points per game this year than the New York Jets. They've been playing better on the defensive side of the ball than the Jets have. And we're midway through the season now. So I know through 3 or 4 weeks we were looking at this New Orleans defense and sort of were waiting for them to wake up. After all, they did allow more yardage than any defense in NFL history last season. But I'm not sure that wake-up moment is going to happen. I think we just have to, at this point, say that Rob Ryan has done a great job in his first year as defensive coordinator there. Changed things up in the front seven. And they are 4th in the NFL right now in points allowed. As we said, allowing 9 fewer points per game than the New York Jets. So again, why here? Why here would someone place a New York Jets bet? I don't know. I'm certainly not going to place a Jets bet. I do have a strong Saints lean in this situation. I'm a little worried, nervous about it because the line does strike me as a little fishy or suspicious, but I don't know. I feel so strongly about the Saints it might override that, and I might end up getting involved and making the Saints one of my best bets anyway. It's way early in the week right now. We do have a couple of days. Opinions always change. Mine do anyway. I don't know about yours, but opinions always change from Tuesday to Friday and Saturday and on into Sunday. But I do have a strong early lean towards the New Orleans Saints there. Again, very tough for me to make a case for the New York Jets. Another game that struck me as suspicious at first, but the more I look at it, the more I think that maybe not so much. That is the Baltimore Ravens going on the road to face the Cleveland Browns. Baltimore, a 1-point favorite on BETDAQ, 41 the total. Looked at this game at first and I thought, man, a Baltimore bet seems obvious. I mean, we're talking about the Browns here. The Browns have lost 5 games this season. They're 3-5. They haven't won a game unless Brian Hoyer has been starting at quarterback. And, of course, Hoyer is lost for the year with a knee injury. But, again, you look at this a little closer, and Baltimore not playing well themselves. They've lost a couple of games in a row, have been held below 20 points in both of those games. And Cleveland plays well defensively. When these two teams played earlier in the season, Baltimore pulled out a 14-6 win. But, again, that Baltimore offense, they scored 20 or less 4 times this season. Again, as we said, including their last 2 games. I know the Browns haven't been good, but this game in Cleveland, again, the more I look at it, the more I do see the Cleveland side here, and I'll probably be staying away from this game when at first, again, I did have a Baltimore lean. Jason Campbell played well at quarterback last week for the Browns. The Browns never really, well, they certainly had a chance to beat the Chiefs there, but they were behind the entire game. The Chiefs controlled that game throughout, but Cleveland did only lose by 6. Campbell threw for nearly 300 yards against the NFL's best defense in terms of points allowed, that being the Kansas City Chiefs. So you never know. The Browns could surprise you this week. Before placing that Ravens bet, I advise you just to take a second look at this game and make sure you feel good about the Baltimore side. Another game I'd like to talk about, going to be one of the marquee matchups of the weekend, even though both teams may be considered disappointments this season. Well, we can't really say that about New England, can we? They're 6-2. I know a lot of people consider the Patriots, even though they're 6-2, to be a disappointment because they just haven't been as good, particularly on offense, as we're used to seeing them. The Pittsburgh Steelers, their opponent this weekend, a clear disappointment. The Steelers now at 2-5 on the year after losing on the road to Oakland last week. Listen, I've been saying this for a couple of weeks now, and I'm going to say it again now. And you might look at me funny, and if the Steelers lose on Sunday, and they are 7-point underdogs, this line, New England -7 on BETDAQ, 44 the total. So if Pittsburgh loses on Sunday, and they probably will, obviously, as 7-point dogs, then I'll stop saying this for a while, but I'm going to say it again right now, especially because I have a feeling the Cincinnati Bengals might lose on Thursday night in Miami. Again, I have an early Miami lean in that game. I'm going to say the Pittsburgh Steelers are not out of it in the race for the AFC North. And don't think that Mike Tomlin and those players aren't talking about that. In the loss column, Pittsburgh only 3 games back at Cincinnati. Again, if Cincinnati loses to Miami this week on Thursday, the Steelers could head into Sunday knowing that if they beat New England, they're only 2 games back in the loss column with a half the season remaining. So all is not done yet for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you look at them this season, they still have one of the best defenses in the NFL. The last 2 seasons, Pittsburgh has led the league in yards allowed. They're currently 3rd in the NFL in total defense, meaning yards allowed. And New England, as we mentioned, they have struggled on offense this season. They have not been themselves. They did pull out a good win over the Miami Dolphins last week, but they were dominated, as we said earlier, they were dominated in the first half of that game before getting it rolling in the second half. But until that game, when they beat the Dolphins by 10 points, New England had played 4 games in a row that had been decided by 7 points or fewer. They were 2-2 in those 2 games. And as we said, they're a 7-point favorite over Pittsburgh. That strikes me as a lot of points. I know the Steelers have been a disappointment this season. I know the Patriots are 6-2, Steelers sit at 2-5. But as we said, the Patriots have been playing a lot of close games. They haven't been very good on offense. The Steelers have been very good on defense. It feels like a lot of points to me. I know Pittsburgh's bad offensively. They only average 17.9 points per game this year. They're 27th in the league in total yards, or in yards per game, that is. But New England has suffered some serious injuries on the defensive side of the ball these last few weeks. Vince Wilfork, Gerard Mayo now out for the season. Aqib Talib, their best cornerback, has been fighting injuries, hasn't played the last couple of weeks. So that New England defense is weakening. Currently 24th in the league in yards allowed. They still are holding up in the points allowed category, only allowing 18 points per game. But I have a feeling we're going to see that New England defense slip over the next few weeks. Not sure if Pittsburgh's going to improve greatly on offense. I think they sort of are what they are on offense. Ben Roethlisberger carries them. They cannot run the ball. Antonio Brown, Emmanuel Sanders, those guys are going to see a lot of targets week in and week out. But I wouldn't be surprised if Pittsburgh is able to score 24-27 this week on the New England Patriots. And again, not sure New England is going to be able to cover that 7-point number. Final game I'd like to talk about, the Sunday night game. The Indianapolis Colts going on the road to face their division rival Houston Texans. Now, some might find this line suspicious. The Colts only a 1-point favorite on BETDAQ, 44.5 is the total. The Texans have lost 5 straight games. So the wheels have totally come off in Houston. Now, we talked a few minutes ago about maybe Thursday night being a circle the wagons type game for the Miami Dolphins. They need this game to keep their season alive. A lot of people might say the same thing about the Houston Texans on Sunday night at home against a division rival. However, that game might have happened 2 weeks ago in the Houston Texans' last game against the Kansas City Chiefs, a tough 1-point loss. A lot of people thought the Texans at 2-4 playing the Chiefs, that was the circle the wagon moment. That because they were heading into a bye after that game and had a tough game here with Indianapolis coming out of the bye. So a lot of people thought if the Texans had any chance of keeping this season going and making the playoffs, they needed to win their last game against the Kansas City Chiefs. And they gave it their all. Again, losing by 1 point. A huge loss on defense as linebacker Brian Cushing, who's probably the second best player on that defense, was lost again with injury. Remember, he was lost last season, midseason, for the remainder of the year. Cushing going down again. That's a big loss on that defense. But man, that defense might be able to stand to lose a guy because that Houston defense is really, really good. If you haven't been paying attention, and it maybe not obvious to the naked eye because the Texans have had some points put up against them this year. They're actually allowing 27 points per game, round about 27 points per game, but a lot of that has to do with the struggles of their offense. Remember, Matt Schaub went through a stretch with 4 straight games with a pick six, an interception return for a touchdown. There have been other situations this season where the Houston offense has set up opposing offenses with short fields, so you can't blame those point totals on the Texans defense. The Texans defense, number 1 in the NFL this year in yards allowed. They're allowing a full 35 yards per game less than any other defense in the league. So they're number 1 in the league by a wide margin in yards allowed. You look at the stats, the defenses that are numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5, there's single-digit yards separating those defenses. 2, 3, 4 yards, 7 yards separating those teams. Again, 35 yards separating the Houston Texans from the rest of the pack. And we have a fairly large sample size now. We're at the midpoint of the season. So the Texans playing great defense. The Colts have been a funny team. They've beaten 3 of the NFL's best teams in Denver, Seattle, and San Francisco, but also a couple of puzzling losses. That road loss to the San Diego Chargers still sort of sticks with me when the Colts could not muster an offensive touchdown. Houston, a much better defense than the San Diego Chargers. So I don't know, you might want to take a look at the under in this game. 44.5 is the total. The Texans going with Case Keenum at quarterback again. This will be Keenum's second career start. Keenum held up all right against the Kansas City Chiefs, which is why he's getting the call here again this week. Matt Schaub apparently is healthy enough to go, but Keenum is getting the call. One Texans angle here you might want to look at if you are looking at the Texans, and to me it seems like this game is either a no play or a Texans play because the Colts will be the popular public side as the week goes along as only a 1-point favorite. This line has seen some movement out in Vegas, opened at Pick'em, and it is now Indianapolis -2 most places in Vegas. As we said, it is -1 on BETDAQ, but to me, the Houston feels like the the right side if we were playing this game blind, if we hadn't seen either team play. We spoke on the Monday night preview, the Seattle-St. Louis preview, that if we were betting the game blind, having seen neither team play, then the St. Louis Rams, who are a double-digit home underdog against a division rival, and the public was all over the double-digit favorite, you would say, most times in that situation, the underdog would be the right play. The non-public play is getting a double-digit number at home against a division rival. You would say that would be the right play. However, as we said on Monday, we aren't betting the games blind. We can't bet the games blind. We know what we saw. And that's why I said on Monday I would have an impossible time betting the St. Louis Rams. I like the Seattle Seahawks to win that game, which they did, and I lean toward a Seattle Seahawks cover, which they did not. But, it's hard to get past what we see. We picture one team playing another team, and we say, well, this can't possibly happen. We picture this Houston Texans team having lost 5 straight games. We picture the Indianapolis Colts team that beat the Denver Broncos in front of the football-watching world, and we say, wait a second, we get the opportunity to back this Indianapolis team, that Colts team, against that Texans team that's starting some guy named Case Keenum at quarterback. Again, almost feels too easy. So, to me, this is either a Texans play or no play at all, and if you are looking at the Texans sort of trying to make a case for them, how about this? The Colts 29th in the NFL in rush defense. We know that Indianapolis has trouble defending the run, and we know that Houston, one thing they can do is run the football with that tandem of Arian Foster, Ben Tate. The Texans currently 10th in the NFL in rush yards per game, averaging just about 128 rush yards per game. And that's actually a little disappointing at this point of the season for the Houston Texans, and they're coming off a bye. Don't think in that bye week they didn't talk about, especially with a young guy like Case Keenum at quarterback. I mean, they don't want to just put everything on Keenum's shoulders and sort of give him the keys to the offense. I would bet a lot of money, and I might bet a lot of money, that the Houston Texans are going to really try to establish the run game in this contest against the Indianapolis Colts, who can be run on, and we know the Texans can run the ball. So, again, that is a Sunday night game. Plenty of time to think about that, but Indianapolis is maybe a suspicious short road favorite against the Houston Texans. We'll keep an eye on that line movement out in Las Vegas as the week goes along, and we'll see if they put up any more markets on BETDAQ. Well, of course, there are plenty more games in this Week 9, and we'll talk about them all. We'll preview them all over the course of the week here on BETDAQ NFL, so we do hope you check back with us periodically. Until then, for BETDAQ NFL, I'm John Arnette.